And thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council work session. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham. Lurick.
Here.
Mangum.
Here.
Mansfield.
Here.
Nicholas.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Glad.
Here. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 2, Parks and Recreation Department. Staff members and representatives of Bonneville Neighborhood Association will be present to discuss a proposal to change the name of Bonneville Community Park to Purse Park in honor of John and Idaho Purse. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council and Butler Parks and Recreation Director. I'm joined at the table with Alfreda Van and Janelle Kanister from the Bonneville Neighborhood Association. This is something we've been talking about for the last couple months here.
Several.
And so we're bringing a proposal to you today. I'm going to do most of the talking. They're going to jump in if I step out of line. So how's that?
They'll probably jump in then.
They probably will.
That'll keep you in line.
They will. So we are hoping to propose a name change for Bonneville Community Park. We're proposing to change that name to Purse Park, P-U-R-C-E, in honor of John and Idaho Purse. Idaho co-authored the Triangle book, which, if you guys aren't familiar with, it was a book that we worked with planning department to help preserve the Triangle neighborhood's rich ethnic history. So there's a lot of history in that area, and she helped the city create that book and make sure the historical value in it was correct. So other things the Purses fought for is they really just fought for the community and for family values and education and foster parenting, human rights. I know Idaho spent a lot of time raising awareness for HIV and AIDS awareness and education. Both were very active in our local NAACP branch here in Pocatello. And so it just really made sense to kind of look and honor them in this way. Janelle and Alfreda, we task them with kind of getting some buy-in from the community because they're out in this neighborhood all the time. In your packets are the signatures that they collected at their Lasting Legacy event, and I know they've been talking with people at the senior center and in the neighborhood to support this. To my knowledge, I don't think we've had any opposition.
None.
So from my perspective, there's a couple reasons I think it would be of value. First, I think it's appropriate to respect the Purse family and their longstanding work to the community. But the other part is kind of selfish on my part, and it's a little bit more of a logistical thing. We have 2 Bonneville parks. We have Bonneville Community Park, and it's on the corner of 7th and East Fremont. And then we have Bonneville Park at the corner that's on Bonneville Street and South 19th. This is very confusing for our patrons. When they try to go to a park, a lot of times they'll call and say, I'm at Bonneville Park, nobody's here. Well, they were supposed to be trying to get to Bonneville Community Park. And so I think just for ease for the community, it makes sense to change the name of one of these parks. And I think this is a great idea. So if you guys are supportive of it, then the next step for me would be to bring this to a council meeting with a resolution for you guys to vote on. The one component that you're probably thinking of is, okay, how do we logistically change the name? And then what about the signage? So signage, because of the rebranding, I'm going to be moving forward to look at all of the signage in our parks anyway. So it would make sense that this would be the first one. I don't see any reason why the parks budget couldn't absorb this first sign. We could roll it out. I know we've been talking with them about potentially putting up a plaque or some information to explain the name of that park, and we would work with them to do that.
Questions? Councilmember Nichols?
I noticed that this is listed as Purse Park in one spot and Purse Memorial Park in another. So will the name actually be Purse Park?
It should be Purse Park. We had talked about both options, but I don't think we want it to be Memorial Park.
Right.
I think Purse Park is most appropriate.
Right. Okay, perfect. Great idea. That's awesome.
Council President Lurick?
I absolutely love it. I think it's perfect. And I was thinking, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it until it was actually Stephen Wigg who brought the name change to a group that I'm part of, and we all loved it. But I never really thought about the idea that there are two Bonneville parks. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't sort of put that together. So I think it makes perfect sense just from a practical standpoint, but it's also a wonderful way to honor people that did a lot for the community. So I think it's a great thing to do, and the timing of it is really good as well to do a new sign, and it'll be your first new sign, and that's pretty cool too. So thank you for bringing this idea to us and for working on it and getting all that community support.
I must say that the family was really excited when I spoke with them last month. They were all here. Idaho and all her children were here, plus grandkids.
Awesome.
And so I went over and visited with them and told them what our plans were for a name change, and they were really excited.
That's cool. Councilmember Mansfield.
When I first read this, just the title of the agenda item, I didn't realize there were two Bonneville parks. I thought we were proposing renaming Bonneville Park, and I was pretty shocked about that at first. And then obviously reading and understanding the details, I think this is just on sheer practicality alone is a great idea.
No question. Any other questions? I might just say, I knew there were two Bonneville parks, and it drove me crazy. And I've been hoping to change the name of one of the two Bonneville parks for years. And so this is a great idea, and I think it's well-deserved. The Purse family is an amazing family, and what a great advocate for the community. They've been their entire lives, and this has been home to them, and they've really, truly made Pocatello a better place. So I think it's a great idea personally. So why don't you bring it forward to us? It sounds like bring it forward so we can get this moving forward and get this done. And I agree 100% that we need a plaque that maybe says a few things about the family and stuff. It's great.
We're planning on not only having a plaque about the family, but a plaque about the Triangle area also, because we're moving our festival from down on 3rd and Lander up to the park. And this past summer when we had it, everybody was excited. People stayed longer. And of course, the police were really excited because of where we had them cooking.
Were they excited that they were cooking, or were they excited?
They were cooking in the shade, and all the smoke was blowing south, which was just perfect. And everybody just agreed of how comfortable and relaxing it was, because we had, the shade and the trees and the benches, and it was really quite comfortable. Yeah. And this year, this coming September, when we have it again, it'll be even more comfortable, because Parks and Recreation has really trimmed a lot of the trees, and it's so much nicer. In fact, we were there at a meeting Tuesday evening with the NAACP, and the lighting, I mean, you can finally have the lighting in the park, and it felt so much safer to meet. And so we're excited. We really are. In fact, the whole community is excited.
Super. I think this is a great thing. So yes, I think bring it forward as soon as you can.
We'll have it at the next agenda next week.
Next week? Okay. Super. That's as soon as you can.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you guys think it was going to be that easy?
Did
Did you think it was going to be that easy?
Well, of course.
Good.
Why not?
Exactly.
Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 3, as the fire department members will be in attendance to present information to the mayor and council regarding FY 2024 wildland fire deployments and receive feedback pertaining to a capital project purchase of a wildland engine as presented during the July 11, 2024 work session. And if you remember right, council, this is the fire department really giving us a report of those deployments. We asked them a few years ago to give us some of those and show that it benefits the state or the community. So thank you for being here. This is kind of cool to have the chief and the president of the union together at the same table.
Yeah, so good morning, Mayor and Council. Ryan Ahern, Fire Chief, and as you pointed out,
Jordan Van Every, Local 187 President.
we thought we would come before you this morning to talk a little bit about our deployments from FY24. We had a really successful season. We're both very happy about it. Jordan actually was on one of the deployments, and so he's here to share some perspectives. And we want to present you with some information, but also be available for any questions you might have about wildland deployments. And at the end, we want to talk about a capital project related to wildland that we would like some guidance on from you. So, as I said, FY24 was a really good year for us, probably one of our busiest wildland deployment years ever. And that takes into consideration not only the amount of accounts receivable that we generated through these wildland deployments, but also the number of personnel and the number of people that we were able to get trained. As the slide states, we sent out 31 different people on 9 different deployments. These deployments are generally a 14-day deployment, but on several of these deployments, we were asked to swap the crew out or extend them. So in some circumstances, the crew will go for 14 days, and then the incident may ask them to stay for an additional 7 days. And I believe your deployment did that. So Jordan was out for 21 days on his deployment. And then we actually swapped that crew as well. So we had crews on that fire for basically 5 weeks. So all of the operating costs and the personnel costs are covered by the incident. So this is a benefit to them because they're able to get surge capacity for their emergencies by using cooperators like us. They pay for the wages and benefits of the people that are on the fire, and they also pay for the backfill for people filling those positions at home when they would have been scheduled to keep the city whole and maintain our response capability. They also pay all of the costs related to travel and any logistical costs, lodging, or anything that they may incur. And then in addition to that, when we send crews with a wildland engine, for example, like Jordan was on, we get a rate per hour for that piece of equipment. And so we generate revenue for basically the rental of that piece of equipment, and then that comes back to the city that we're hoping to then use for capital projects in the future. So, anything to add on that?
Councilmember Mansfield.
If it's more appropriate, please tell me just to put a pin in it and bring it back up. I know, for example, like mileage reimbursement, and I have a pretty good idea of when a company covers enough to cover just the bare minimum of fuel. I also know enough when they cover for, wear and tear on vehicle, the expected cost of tires and oil changes and everything that goes into maintaining a vehicle when you use it for company purposes. I have no idea what the rate should be on a wildland asset, and like, are we breaking even? Is it just dead flat? Yes, it covers the cost, no extra. Are we getting more than it's probably actually costing us each day? Is it less? I don't know how to evaluate that.
Yeah. So we don't charge mileage on these. It's just for cost, and then we get an hourly rate.
Sure. So that hourly rate is
Yeah, and the hourly rate, I would say, far exceeds what any mileage reimbursement would be. And I'll kind of show you that. And I apologize. I believe the hourly rate is about $68 or $78 an hour for that unit.
So let me rephrase my question a little bit, because I think I wasn't terribly clear. Not necessarily in terms of like reimbursing mileage. So we rent it out at $78 an hour. What does it cost in wear and tear and having that asset be gone an hour on that vehicle, right? Does every hour we use it essentially cost $50 in wear and tear and we get 78 back? Or are we, does that point make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't have a figure to tell you what it costs to operate that or how many hours we get out of a vehicle. At the end, I'll kind of show you how much we brought in this year.
Okay.
I think it'll be apparent that it's a net positive for
Okay,
the city
great.
to be able to do that.
I will add that on our deployment, we were sent on an assignment one day that ruined a set of tires.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the incident covered us getting all new tires on the truck.
Got it.
So,
Okay. So we're not losing money essentially because we're wearing out the asset more than they're reimbursing us.
Right.
Okay.
And just like with the personnel, this is a benefit to them because they're getting access to an additional piece of firefighting apparatus that they didn't have to put the money up front and
Right.
have in reserve. We maintain the vehicle. They get to use it when they need, and so they pay the cost of that
Great.
at the established rate. And it's a uniform rate throughout the state. Everybody that participates in this program gets the same rate.
Okay.
Councilman,
Never mind.
nope, never mind.
Already answered.
Okay. Some of the benefits that we get from this when we send our people out is they get to experience really large-scale incidents, complex incident command systems, and unique fire behavior. Our people were out on some big fires this year, mostly in Idaho. And it's just really a good experience for them to be part of that incident command system, and they get a whole new perspective on, I think, fire response, fire behavior, and incident command. On all of our deployments this year, we were able to send out an additional person. So our normal staffing is 3, but we were able to send 4, and that cost was also covered by the incident. And those additional people were trainees that are working to increase their training and experience in the National Wildland Group as engine bosses to get credentialed. And so that was a real value to the city this year because of the training that our people received. And then we also develop good relationships with other cooperators that are responding from around the state and our federal partners, the Forest Service and BLM. These are some of the fires that we went on, and I believe, Jordan, this first one, or the second one, the Twin Falls, the GAC is a Geographic Area Command Center, and so is that the one you were on?
yeah, we actually went on 3 different fires. We started off in Twin Falls, and then we went down into Nevada, a little place called Gerlach. That's where the Burning Man Festival is, that area. And then we ended our on the Paddock Fire north of Emmett. So
The Paddock Fire was the largest fire in Idaho this year, and it was at over 190,000 acres were burned on that fire. And so when we send crews to the GAC like we did in Ely, Nevada and Twin Falls, this is like surge capacity where we're sending an engine to a geographic area that can then do initial response to some of these fires because the resources in that area are depleted. Some of the other fires we were on are the West Mountain Complex and the Chimney Fire. One of the things I think that's really valuable that I'll just point out is that most of the fires that we were on for a long duration were in Idaho. And so we feel really good that we were able to help out in our own home state, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, we got Councilmember Nichols.
Relative to the fires, could you give us an idea of the magnitude of our participation in the form of total man hours? I mean, was it significant participation on our part?
Absolutely. You know, these are not just fires where we go sit in a staging area or something. Our people are on the front lines, and Jordan was on that, so maybe you can give him an idea. I don't have a number as far as the number of personnel that were deployed, but I know that they relied heavily, and that's why we kept swapping out crews because they needed staffing so
yeah,
badly.
I mean, on the Paddock Fire, we had got assigned to it when we were in Nevada, and we drove all the way to Boise from where we were at in Nevada. And as soon as we got to Boise, they were like, "We need you guys there right now," because they didn't have anybody. I think we were the 3rd or the 4th engine on that fire, and it had grown 10 to 20,000 acres in a matter of hours. And they were really happy that we had showed up because they were hurting for people.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got on that fire at midnight, and it was cooking pretty good at midnight still.
So how many of our guys were on that fire and for how long?
So we had 4 people on our engine, And I think we had guys on that fire for probably 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then we also had people just right across the mountain on that West Mountain Complex fire for probably even longer. I think we were on that up until the season ended. From about the same time that we were on the paddock fire, we had another engine over there for
Yeah,
probably a month
yeah,
or longer.
5 weeks, I think. And so when you look at, you know, I could come up with the number of staffing hours that we had, but we had 9 different deployments. They all were at least 2 weeks in duration and had at least 2 to 4 people on them. And so really, we were out for about 18 weeks with people on fires. It was a big impact, and
And we're working 16-hour days when we're out on those fires, so.
it was very well received by the incidents because, as Jordan pointed out, they were in dire need of resources.
So when we have people out on these fires, does that leave any gaps here at home that we need to fill?
So the incident does pay for backfill. We end up using a reserve truck, and that's part of the capital purchase that we're bringing to you today. So we are missing that piece of apparatus out of our fleet, but the personnel staffing level remains the same. And so there is some impact maybe to our surge capacity, and we just kind of weigh the costs and benefits of that. We are probably a little more conservative during our high fire danger times. And then early and late in the season, we're a little more maybe willing to send something out. For example, right now, California is putting out requests for a lot of resources because of what's going on in LA, and this would be a perfect time of year for us to send something. So.
Got it, thank you.
Council President Lurick.
I have 2 questions, one for you, Ryan, and one for you, Jordan, but actually maybe just a third first. You mentioned LA. I've been watching what's going on there, which is just horrible. Are we considering sending anybody there? Would we do that, or?
We are. We have some people that have pretty unique training. It's called a task force leader, and we put them on the roster. I was up until late last night trying to coordinate Idaho's response. I serve on the Idaho Fire Chiefs Executive Board as the District 6 Director. And so when these requests that are coming from California are what's called an EMAC request, which is an Emergency Management Assistance Compact. It's a state-to-state mutual aid agreement that is nationwide. And so we send people under a little bit different relationship than we're talking about today. It's through the Idaho Office of Emergency Management. And so we were trying to coordinate that most of the day yesterday. And I believe Idaho is probably sending about, they said 5 strike teams, which is 25 pieces of apparatus and personnel to California, and they should be leaving today.
But that would ultimately be a state-level decision, but you would have
Yes,
input?
yeah, it comes through the state down to local cooperators.
Okay. The other question was kind of related to what Councilmember Nichols just asked you about the coverage here. I know that they pay for that fill-in coverage when our employees are on deployment, but I was wondering just how we are managing in terms of the number of personnel that we have available to draw from. Are we, I mean, does it hurt? Are we tight on staffing? I don't know exactly how to put that, but is it difficult at all to cover?
No, I think people are willing to step up and cover. It's an additional opportunity for them to come in and work and be compensated for that work. We haven't had problems filling that. We've had as many as, there was a period, this year we had 2 out most of the summer, 2 crews out, so 8 people. There was a time when we were swapping 2 of the crews when we had 16 people gone for one day. And so that was a bit of a strain, but we managed it, and it was only just for that brief time where they were overlapping back and forth. But 8 is a pretty comfortable number for us to be able to commit.
Good. I mean, I think this is a great program, and it's really a win-win. I mean, we're able to help, but it also benefits the city and our people and everything. So that was my last question, was really to Jordan about the experience. We talk about that by going on these deployments that you can gain valuable experience and different than what you might be able to get here. Did you feel that was?
I did,
case?
yeah. I mean, we were on some big fires when we went out and a lot of moving parts, and we just don't get that. I mean, we do a really good job in our local area of making sure the fire goes out pretty fast. And so we tend to keep them pretty small just because our response district is so small compared to some of these larger areas that, you're not able to get a fire apparatus to some of these places in a timely fashion. And so that's, the unfortunate situation why the fires get so big. And so it was very eye-opening for me to be able to see the depth and the scope of what like a type 3 team is doing as far as how they're setting up all the logistics and the operation side of things. And there's a lot that goes into it that I've never been exposed to in my 9 years here. And so the experience that I was able to bring back as far as not only how to fight the fire, but how to start to organize things and get resources in.
And manage.
That's just a very small portion of what I learned in a short amount of time when I was out.
great.
So
Brent?
Good, thank you.
Councilmember Nichols?
So do the firefighters receive their regular pay rate on these deployments? Or is it more or less a regular rate? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The firefighter works their regular rate on their normal scheduled days, and then they'll be on overtime for days that they weren't scheduled, so they're made whole as well.
Got it, thank you.
This last slide is slide.
Chief, we've got Councilmember Mangum.
So sorry. So if the state trickles down and we do deploy people to California, is the compensation about the same as what it would be for wildland fires?
It's slightly different under an EMAC. They don't cover the backfill. So
Okay.
that is more of a mutual aid agreement where the city of Pocatello is agreeing to help out LA County by sending some of our people, and then they pay for the person and the resource, but they don't pay the backfill. So there is a little bit more of an exposure to the city under an agreement like that.
Thank you.
And that type of agreement is similar, we used a similar mutual aid agreement during the Charlotte fire. And so it's not uncommon, and these EMACs are quite common in the United States. The last EMAC request we got was just this fall to go to North Carolina for the hurricane aftermath. So. This slide here is just to give you kind of a snapshot of the finances involved here. And so in FY24, the fire department generated $188,000 in non-tax-based revenue from these deployments. And that's just money for the use of the vehicle. This doesn't take into account any of the money that we received back for operational costs that we front-loaded or any of the personnel costs. And so this is just purely the money that the city would receive for the use of that vehicle. And so I'm going to show you in a minute a capital project to purchase a brush truck for around $250,000. And in just this one season through these 9 deployments, we were able to make almost enough to finance one of those projects. So I wanted to provide you a little bit on the outlook. I know that we've talked a few times about deployments, but I believe that we are going to continue to see these types of requests. Nationwide, we're seeing a shortage in federal firefighters due to a variety of reasons. And so particularly in the off seasons, we're seeing high demand for cooperators like us to send resources to assist on these fires. And so I think we'll continue to see that grow. And in our meetings with the BLM and Forest Service, they're saying the same thing. They're saying that they are understaffed, that they are having problems with recruitment and retention, and they anticipate continued use of cooperators on these fires. So I think this is a great opportunity for the city to provide some non-tax-based revenue to achieve some of our capital project goals. And that is kind of a segue into what I want to talk about. We have been exploring, and we talked to you in July at a work session about an additional wildland engine for our fleet. We did have revenue that we've been saving in Fund 78 for the last couple of years towards one of these capital projects. And so right now we're exploring a capital purchase by purchasing a chassis on the state contract through the Mountain Home Auto Ranch. And that's about $71,300. And then what we would do is have that delivered to a company in Yakima, Washington named C Western, and they would upfit that truck into a wildland engine, as you see on the picture there. And this is designed by us. Jordan was on the spec committee that kind of put together the options that we want, and so this would be custom designed for our agency. The total project would be about $257,000. We did do some shopping around and looked at multiple vendors, and this is by far the best price. We would be using a cooperative purchase agreement through Sourcewell for this to satisfy procurement requirements. Some of the other vendors that we looked at were in excess of all of them were in excess of $300,000. And so we feel like this is good value. And if you're supportive, we would bring a purchase agreement before you next week at the council meeting.
Councilmember Nichols.
So this would be our second truck? Is that right? Or how many do we have?
Did not purchase one this summer. When I presented in July, it was just about the concept, and I presented two projects at that time. One of them was a station remodel, and the other one was this.
No, I understand, but as far as vehicles, we already have one, right? This would be the
We
second
actually
one?
have,
Right, we have three?
we have three that we purchased in 2022, and then we have another one that we use that is a 2002, so it's 20 years old. We did put some money into it a few years ago. It would become a piece of reserve apparatus, and this would be another piece of frontline apparatus that would be a newer vehicle. So this would really be the fourth truck that we purchased in the last 5 years.
Okay. And how often do we use this equipment at home?
Seasonally, we had a pretty calm wildland season locally here. We did have some fires in our newly annexed area on South Fifth. Some stuff up Trail Creek. We helped out with some mutual aid over on Mashad Creek, and so
Around the 4th of July, we were really busy with them.
so we do use them pretty frequently during the season. So they get local use as well as availability for this other use.
Great, thank you.
We, a few years ago, if you remember right, when we purchased the other three, we had one that was donated, one was a grant, and then the city, we paid for one through reserves. And at that time, we knew we needed at least one more because the trucks that we were using that we had, that those three replaced, literally, we were never sure if they were going to start or not. It was nerve-wracking for the firefighters and for sure the mayor to be sitting there going, okay, that truck's up there and it's off and there's a fire coming and I don't know if they can start it or not to get off the hill. And somehow they always got it started. I think they were pushing it a couple times to do so, but this would replace that last one. And so my question was, is it's a different than the other three, but the pieces and parts that are important will intermingle and match. Is that correct?
Different configuration on the service body, but the tank is the same size, the pump is the same pump. Couple other little things that we would have liked on these other trucks that we didn't have, and very similar, just a little. It's just going to look a little bit different.
Okay. Councilmember Mangum. It's Mansfield.
I know.
What's the fulfillment time on a vehicle like this?
I think this one they're estimating, I believe, next it'll be late in the fire season. We probably get it towards the end of the summer.
Okay. And then the other question, I'm recalling we discussed like storage solutions for these vehicles. What is the current status of that storage solution?
We're still evaluating options. And
Okay.
That's definitely one of the capital projects that we're hoping to be able to find a solution to.
Okay. Okay.
Council, we've thought about that an awful lot. In fact, if we had a location, we would probably be requesting two of these right now, but we're not because of that very reason. We've got to protect them, and we've got a couple locations, but we just have to get them figured out and finished up.
Okay.
Councilmember Mangum this time.
Mansfield, Mangum.
Mansfield, I mean, you're twins, so
We look so much alike.
you do.
So when out on deployments and we send one of these apparatus, Chief, you had said that it's almost like we're down one or we're short one here back at home. Is that correct or, okay. So with this one, this new one, once we get it, will that be the one that we send or will it be one of the reserve ones that we send? How will that look?
So this would give us 4 newer vehicles, and we would probably send maybe 2 of those out on deployment, because obviously we want our people to have a reliable rig that's capable of traveling. But this would give us just a little bit better coverage here in town when we do have those out. We do have 2 reserve trucks right now, so we probably would get rid of one of them that's in pretty good disrepair. We'd still have 2 reserves and 4 front lights, so we'd have
Okay.
6 total trucks.
Okay.
Council President Lyric?
I just wanted to confirm, you said, and maybe I misunderstood. I think you said that from the deployments, we have enough money now to pay for this. Is that including money that we had already been putting aside? Did you say that?
Yeah, that does not include the 188,000 that and we will be requesting to amend for that revenue to go into Fund 78. But this is money currently in Fund 78 through FY 23, 22 and 23 revenue generated in those years in Fund 78 that would finance this project.
Okay. So from 22 and 23, so we're not paying for it from any 24 deployments? Or
Not
that-
directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, but we're just starting. We've received almost all of the revenue from the FY 24 deployments, and those are still just in the revenue line. We haven't done anything with those yet.
Okay. Good.
Okay, Councilmember Nichols and then Councilmember Mangum.
So based on the 2024 revenue, assuming we were to lease this vehicle out, it could perhaps pay for itself in a year and a half, is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's multiple vehicles we have out, but the revenue that we generate in a season is almost enough to purchase a new vehicle.
Right, all right, thank you.
I have 2 questions. One was related to what he had said, and so we're going to skip that. So EMS here revenue that we have on that slide just before, are they being deployed also?
Yeah, this would be, this year we sent out an ambulance and also a single resource paramedic to a fire, and he had some equipment with him, and then there's a little bit of revenue generated from that piece of equipment, but definitely sending out vehicles is more financially beneficial to the city and to the district, the county.
So when we send out vehicles, it's our people operating our vehicles. Not we just go drop off a vehicle,
Correct.
go do your thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they come staffed with our people.
And on that, I just want to say thank you for you guys' hard work, and being a support to surrounding area is huge. And I think that just deserves admiration, praise, and thanks for what you guys do. Not just here locally, but just like I said, in the surrounding area. And so, Jordan, if you can take back to the union just an appreciation for what they do, it's awesome to see the firefighters find other avenues to, number one, support other people and to generate revenue for your department to assist in these kind of expenditures and just to make Pocatello the one and only such a great place and make us neighbor friendly, you know? So thank you guys for all that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, we're pretty proud of this program.
Okay. Thank you. I think I haven't heard any negatives about bringing that forward next week, and so,
Okay, we'll bring it to you. Thank you very much.
thank you very much. Yep, thank you.
None from Mangum Mansfield, from the M&Ms.
We will move to agenda item 4 as Planning and Development Services staff members will be in attendance to present information and receive feedback from the council regarding a request for proposals for a City of Pocatello housing plan.
All right.
I'm Mayor and Council. I'm Brent McLean, Planning Development Services Director, and I have Jim Anglesey, our long-range senior planner, and Becky Babb, our planning manager. We're bringing to you today a proposal. We would like to submit an RFP to get services from a consultant to help with a housing plan. And I've talked with you over the last couple of years about a need for a housing plan. We're all very aware of our current housing shortages and the housing crisis that is nationwide. And the purpose of this plan is to help us to really evaluate where we are as a city. I have a lot of good guesses, but I don't have a lot of good hard data and information that we need to get to really guide some of our decision making. And so part of this plan will not only be data gathering, but it'll also be recommendations of how to make improvements to our community, specifically with housing. Pocatello has one of the oldest housing stocks in the state, and it's a struggle that we fight with because our houses, they're getting tired, they're getting worn, and we have a lot of needs. And so part of this will be some strategic planning. What kind of development opportunities could we look to enhance our housing? What funding opportunities are out there? And then also, it would also provide a document for you as a council to make decisions on housing with real information and not just emotion. Lots of times you'll have housing projects that come before you and there's a lot of outrage about those housing projects. But what this can do for you then is give you some clear direction as to what really is there, what's on the ground, and how can you help our community as a whole with our housing. And so I think it's going to be very useful for you as a council too, as you are faced with some of these housing challenges. The other thing we're hoping to get out of this plan is some code change recommendations. We would like to revisit our entire zoning ordinance and rewrite the entire zoning ordinance. We have a lot of things that aren't working quite right. We've done a lot of Band-Aids, but it's time to really change the way we're approaching things and to revisit what we're doing. Take the things that are working and enhance them, and the things that aren't quite working, that are confusing or obstacles to creating housing, that we can streamline those things and remove those things. Looking at our development standards, looking at our subdivision standards, all those things that we can really streamline and more efficiently use this document to help guide us to make those code and governing documents clear and straightforward. The other thing I'd like to see with this housing plan is a document that we can give developers. And we can talk with developers and say, hey, look at this. If you build these things, they'll be successful. And take some of that need from them to have to do a lot of the economic research out of it and help encourage that development. as a community resource for different developers that we can reach out and provide information to, whether it's local developers or people from outside of the community. We have some really good, solid information for them. And so this housing plan is really important for the future growth of our housing in the community.
We have a question, Councilmember Nichols.
Will this plan give us a complete inventory of all of our housing stock?
It should give us a pretty good inventory of what our housing stock is. It should include, and that's a great segue into our housing needs assessment. So there's going to be a large component of data collection, and it'll look at what kind of housing do we have? How much of it is rental? How much of it is owned? What kind of condition is it in? How much are people paying for that housing? And it will give us a really good analysis of what our housing stock is and where are we short? What kind of housing do we need? Are we short on apartments? Are we short on the townhouses or single family? What kind of housing do we need to fill the needs of our community? What kind of housing do the different demographics want? We have an interesting need with ISU here and the student housing and the need that they have, and whether it's apartments or, we have a lot of houses that are getting subdivided and turned into rentals, and is that good or bad for the community? And we can look at those things and see what direction we really need to go.
All right, so this housing plan will also achieve a lot of our goals and strategies in the comprehensive plan. As a city, we've adopted a planning approach called smart growth. And part of that smart growth idea is what you see here on the screen, is to provide opportunities and choice in housing. And so this housing plan will seek to meet that approach of planning to provide quality housing for our families at all levels of life, diversifying our housing stock, and mixing residential and commercial in areas of convenience, so within our cores. A majority of what the housing plan will achieve is in our vision element of authentic and affordable neighborhoods. It will touch on pretty much every goal, which includes 6 goals. And so I just wanted to put them up here to kind of show you the amount that we'll be achieving in our comprehensive plan through the housing assessment and plan. We'll be looking at that the plan will help aid in creating neighborhood plans, neighborhood specific. Let me go next. And then we have a goal specifically addressing that we need a housing plan. And it talks about collaborating with ISU to see what their needs are. A lot of what Brent has already mentioned, looking at creating those partnerships with the public and developers as well. And then having that, what type of housing do we need in each neighborhood? So this will help us get an overall picture of housing, and then we can apply that to the various neighborhoods throughout the city. And also in working with the Housing Alliance and CDBG, how do our low to moderate income population and those that are unhoused or in need of assistance, the housing plan will help address a variety of those issues as well.
I have a question by Councilmember Mangum.
The planning process or the preparing this plan, is this going to be something that's done in-house or something that you would like to hire a consultant to do, or a mix of the two?
So, stealing my thunder, Corey.
Sorry about that.
Or Councilman Mangler. So, no, so we would like to go out and hire a consultant to help with this. This is a heavy lift. And there is some very specific expertise associated with this that while we could take a pretty good crack at it, I think it would be more beneficial for us to send this type of document out to someone who performs these types of functions on a regular basis, that can really dig into it. And so we'll get into some of those costs and how we plan to cover those costs a little bit later on in our presentation. But I do also want to point out and that this is an important key to our CDBG funding as well, and how we have a requirement every 5 years to do a consolidated plan with HUD, and this will play a role into that consolidated plan, that it will be a great resource for Christine as she's writing that plan to help us to provide all the answers that HUD will be asking as we are writing that consolidated plan. So this is a good foundational piece for that consolidated plan as well.
Do you have another one?
Yeah. Jim had mentioned something about partnering or coordinating with our own housing alliance here in town. This plan, will it help us to cooperate better with them, to align like where housing shortages are, pick up the slack for us or for them or vice versa, whatever? How exactly does that help? How does that help coordinate the strategies there?
I think it gives you a roadmap of how you guys can all coordinate together with the Housing Alliance, with the council, and with planning and CDBG. It'll lay out essentially a roadmap. Like, these are the things that we can work towards together. As with any plan, that will give everyone a good roadmap that we can all come together and work towards a common goal.
And those partners will be heavily involved in the writing of this plan, and they will have input, and their needs will be acknowledged and looked at, because there are specific needs, especially for those who are unhoused or have threatened housing, that they have very clear needs that I don't think we do a very good job as a city to really address, and I think we need to really look at how we can improve that. I think there's a lot of I think we feel like we want to do something, but we aren't doing as much as we can. And I think this document can help us to identify how we can help with those needs more effectively.
And oftentimes, just to add to that, a lot of our funding opportunities require us to have certain adopted documents by our leadership. And so whether that's, transportation funding or housing funding, this is a requirement, and not just for CDBG, but there are other opportunities available, such as through HUD that Christine applies for. But this will open opportunities if we decide to do different projects, when we change if we need to sign on a grant application with, say, NeighborWorks, or one of those opportunities where someone is trying to get certain dollars and we need a plan in place that shows that we'll comply with those requirements. This will allow us those opportunities.
Okay, we've got Councilmember Nichols and then Council President Lurick.
When would you expect this plan would be finished?
I'm hoping to have this plan finished by next winter.
All right, thank you.
I really like the idea of collaborating with these other agencies in the community. And I think that would be really, well, I hope that it would be beneficial in terms of getting more community buy-in and support, rather than having a lot of the battles that we have over, specific attempts to develop housing, in certain areas, and whether it's what we need or not. Or I think having the data will be really helpful, but having these other working closely with these other agencies will really help. I like that you mentioned the issue of the unhoused, because I think that's an area where we really can do more and do better. And I was wondering, would your collaborative efforts include like Aid for Friends or other organizations that work specifically with that population, or even like what's the Bannock Youth Foundation? And I think because some of our unhoused are young people really that maybe like couch surfing or
Yeah, so I think that is a key component to this plan. And all those nonprofits and different organizations that deal with those things locally, they have knowledge and expertise that would be beneficial to the creation of those sections of this document that we would need to incorporate.
good. The other question, kind of along the same lines, is you mentioned ISU, and I mean, there's the obvious aspect of student housing, and they have a big interest in making sure that, other than students who live on campus, that there's housing that, you know, students can afford, so that they can come here. Would there be other ways that you would collaborate with ISU? And I was wondering what
Well,
those might be.
I think more specifically, it's more about on a more whole city-wide and business-wide. We have an issue in Pocatello of attracting people to Pocatello because of the limited housing stock that we have. That people, I think employers are struggling to bring people here because there's nowhere for them to buy a house. I know the FBI has struggled with that. I know ISU struggles with bringing quality people here because they are struggling to find a place to live. And that's one component of economic development that we can really help with, that if we improve our housing opportunities. And to Jim's point, our housing choices, not everyone wants that quarter-acre lot with the house on it. You know, some people want downtown housing. Some people just want a townhouse with no yard to maintain. There's a lot of different types of housing people want from all walks of life. And so what we need to do is have a real plan in place, working with those employers as to what do your people need, and how can we help make it easier for you to recruit people here.
I really think that's very important, because it is a big part of economic development. So I think that kind of holistic view, and getting the information from, you know, ISU, the FBI, Simplot, or whatever, that there are people. And I also think you bring up another point that is really important in terms of what people want is really changed from what it used to be. You know, the whole idea that everybody wants, you know, that single-family home on a quarter-acre lot. If there were some really cool lofts, I'd be in them like that. So I think that the idea of, you know, more sort of flexibility in not having to maintain a yard and property in there is appealing to a lot of people. So I think having those options would be very beneficial to us. We have really one type of housing for the most part, and we're starting to add some different ones, but I think we've been very centered on that idea that everybody wants that type of home. We need options. Thank you.
Go ahead. So we talked about some of the expected outcomes already a little bit, and so I'm not going to delve into this too much, but we expect some really hard data out of this plan. We expect the housing needs assessment, and we also want to include in an optional fair housing plan to really delve into those fair housing problems that we have in the city. And so as far as budget goes, we're anticipating it costing approximately $75,000. Depending on what that fair housing component might cost, it may be more than that. But I think we can absorb these costs out of our our professional services line item in our budget. I have money set aside for plans like this and some of these professional services. But it wasn't something that, we talked about it this fiscal year, but I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to allocate those funding dollars. But I think this is going to be the best use of these funds for us this year. And so I think we can pay for that out of our current budget. And but what we wanted to do was come here and talk with you and just get your feedback. Is this something that you want me to pursue and proceed with? We feel very strongly about it, and I hope you do too. But before we go and put this RFP out for responses, we wanted to get your blessing on it.
Councilmember Mansfield.
Yeah, I think this is a critically important project that needs to be done for our city and would be fully in support of doing this work. The one thing that I did want to ask, when I look at something like Comprehensive Plan 2040, for example, it's a pretty extended, and while it does take into account our picture of what the city looks like today, it's definitely a document that's designed to create kind of guidance and frameworks for, the next 2 decades. For a project like this, to what extent is it going to be a snapshot that the further removed we get from when it's completed, the less valuable it is? And to what extent is it a framework that, like, I guess how long does that document stay useful?
Yeah.
And what does updating it look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It is very much a snapshot.
Okay.
It will take into account our current conditions and what direction we should go based on where we are now. It probably would need to be revisited in the next 5 years. To see, what kind of changes have we gone through. And that's very similar to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, we probably will need to revisit it here in a few years and do an update to it because things have changed. We've accomplished a lot of our goals. And that's how most plans are. They're a snapshot of where we are now, the direction we want to go. But this plan is very much a current conditions type plan. And what do we do based off of where we are now?
When we do the heavy lifting with this, $75,000 plan, a 5-year revision and update of the progress that's been made, because we're not operating from nothing, is it $75,000 every 5 years, or do you think because we have the heavy lifting this time?
I think we could probably just do an update and be a little bit less.
Okay.
But then after 10 years, you're probably going to have to do another big
Sure.
heavy lift.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, Council President Lurick and then Councilmember Nichols.
I was just trying to remember my question. You go ahead, I'll think of it.
Hey, Councilmember Nichols, because Council President Lurick can't remember.
Thank you.
So will this plan have potential solutions to the identified housing challenges?
Yeah, so we would like to have recommendations made by the consultant on how we can address some of these issues. What kind of funding sources might we pursue? What changes should we make in our zoning ordinance? What obstacles are developers facing? And what things can we do as a city to promote housing? I think there's a lot of things we can do that we don't currently do. And so I think those are the recommendations we'd like to have as part of this plan as well.
And one of the things I hear most in the community is probably the need for affordable housing. And it sounds like this plan would be a good step
It's
in
a
that
step
direction.
in that direction, yes.
Yep.
Do you remember?
Council President, if you remember, and after that, we've got Councilmember Cheatham.
I got thrown by the good discussion about this, about the idea of the plan being a where we are now and snapshot of. But what I was going to say is that I'm very much in support of this. I think it's much needed, and it's a good way for us to move forward and to address some of these big needs. As Councilmember Nichols just said, this is the thing we probably hear the most about, the need for affordable housing and the need for childcare. So this is at least getting at one of those big issues. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Super. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cheatham.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
That better? I'm very much in favor of this plan, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Boise Chamber of Commerce legislative meeting yesterday, and 4 of us, including me, were on a panel to talk about growth. And there's some very innovative things happening across Idaho. As we listen to people talk, I think the emphasis was there's not one solution to every community across the state. And we need to find the solution that's right for our community and our potential growth and the demographics in our community before we can even begin to really solve the housing problem. It's a long-term thing. We're not going to have a bunch of developers come in and crank out 100 houses next year, but over the next few years, as we project potential growth, I think this is a very ambitious project and one that will be very invaluable to the city of Pocatello. The one question I have, if I may, when I went through the documents on this, there's a bunch of stuff is dated 22 and 23. And I'm curious about that, and it confused me just a bit.
That's a good question,
Yeah.
Councilmember Cheatham. So this is when we started talking about it, and we started coming to you, the council, trying to get money for this. And I just have been trying to budget for it over the last few years and finally feel like I can do it now. So we started looking at, what we wanted to get out of this housing plan and what it was going to cost, trying to talk with other communities, what are they, other consultants, what is it going to actually be, and really fine tune what we wanted. And then we had some personnel turnover that kind of shook up things for a little while. But now we're ready to pick it up and move forward, and we have a fully staffed planning department now, and we have the people we need to be able to move this forward.
And often, Councilmember Cheatham, we'll change those dates last because there's a lot of dates to back into. And so until we've made all of our edits, we don't want to pick a publication date until we know all of our edits are made. So then we know when we have to publish it and when we have to email that to the journal and which days it's going to be in the paper and which days the journal publishes a paper. So there's a lot of math that goes into those dates. So Christine and I often leave them highlighted until the very end so that we know the final document is going out with the right dates that we can actually meet all of those timeframes.
Thank you very much. That helped to clear it up. I thought when I initially read it, it was something we'd already done, and now we're going to do it again. It really did confuse me.
Yeah, our work process
thank
is
you.
often that we just highlight them all and ignore them until we have everything in the scope and the cost and what we're going to be evaluating and do the dates last. So we're not trying to rush into a date that needs to be met. So those are changed at the very end.
If I may add, Mr. Mayor, one of the people who presented yesterday was Jordan Redmond from Coeur d'Alene. And they've got some very innovative things going on up there that they're just beginning on. And I couldn't write fast enough to take notes, and I don't remember all that he said, but it might be worth contacting the planners in Coeur d'Alene to see what they're doing. They're doing some things that sounded very unique solutions to a similar housing problem.
Sounds good, thank you. Council President Lurick, I think I saw your hand up.
I was just going to comment, I do remember that this has come up at least in our last 2 or 3 budgeting sessions, so I understand where the dates are coming from, but I'm also really glad that we're able to move forward with this because I think it is necessary, so.
Okay, super. Other questions?
Strong yes.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you've got the support from
Okay, we'll do it.
the council here, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. We'll move to agenda item 5, which this time's been set aside for the mayor and council members to give an update regarding recent advisory board activities. Let's start with Councilmember Cheatham because I don't know how long we have him with us. Thanks for joining us, by the way, Councilmember. He's neck deep. They've been in session for 20 minutes, and he's neck deep into committee meetings and running around. And so, thank you, Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's It has been a little hectic these first 4 days. I've got to leave in about 10 minutes to go to the floor session. So, but very briefly, I haven't had any updates since our last meeting. This meeting falls a little early in the month, and I've had a couple of them cancel, and so I have nothing to report at this time on advisory committees.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, and thank you for joining us and representing Pocatello so well in Boise. We appreciate it. Council President Lurick.
I came prepared, since I always forget. Audit and Investment Committee is going to meet in January. We meet quarterly, so our last meeting was October, which I believe I already reported on. Our next meeting will be January because we didn't do December. But we are, I just wanted to remind people that in October, we had our report from the auditor, and it was a good, the audit was almost complete, and they were just wrapping it up, and it was a good report. So no major findings, which is what you want. The Bannock Transportation and Planning Organization, we sort of didn't have a meeting because we didn't have a quorum, but we were there. And the main thing that needed to be discussed was approving the position description and the position announcement for the director position to get ready to try to fill Maury's position. Since we didn't have a quorum, we just sort of went over it a little bit and then agreed that Maury was going to send that out by email and get feedback so that we weren't held up on that process. So I think there have been just some small suggestions to make changes, and that's moving forward. The Pocatello Development Authority, we had a brief meeting on December 18th and then had our holiday lunch. The main agenda item in that meeting was a resolution approving the memorandum of understanding. So it's between the PDA and the organization. It's about the termination of the Naval Ordnance Plant TIF district, that we're planning to close that early, which is always a good thing. We're looking at, we have been looking at starting some new ones and what might be next, but we also want to move on closing things out as soon as we can. So that was approved. And also approval of the North Portneuf District Railroad Overpass and Access Road Scope of Work Proposal. And that one was related to our, the whole Craft Road project that the city is working on. So those were the big things from PDA. And then,
So if I
Go
might
ahead.
If I might
Yep.
just cut in there, the recommendation is to close the Naval Ordnance District and then open another one in the same location because they have more of they've got more projects coming, and this one has achieved the goals that has been set for, and so what would happen is we would close that with the recommendation of opening another one. It resets the base. All of those the tax rolls change and the baseline changes, and then everything from that moving forward, and then the new one will start at that new base. And so
Yeah.
it'll be good to add those back onto the tax rolls and then start again so they can continue to do and add more. And it is, we are closing that, I think it's 7 years early, I think, 6 or 7 years early, which Pocatello does very well with their TIF districts is closing them early, and if we need to open them, we'll open them back up, so.
Yeah.
It's
for
important to get
clarifying.
that
Yeah.
base.
Reset.
Reset and adjusted is for the tax base, and so.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And then that overpass is on this, if you're not sure where that is, council, the Hoku site, it is west, and it's the overpass of the railroad tracks. Right now, that secondary exit is at grade at those railroad tracks, and I think you cross 9, maybe 11 different tracks there, and so it's not an ideal situation to, if we have an emergency, to try to get people out that way, and so with that overpass is something that's definitely
Kinda
needed.
cleans
and so
that
it's-
up.
It cleans it up
Yes.
and does a lot of really good things, so.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you for the clarification. And that was an important point about the Naval Ordnance Plant, that we're opening a new one, but it really was about resetting that base. And that was really what our discussion was about in our last meeting, so I think that's a good point. My last one was historic downtown Pocatello, and our December meeting was canceled. So we didn't have a meeting. And then January's meeting is set for the day that we will be in Boise for AIC at the Capitol. So I will miss January's meeting. But I will catch up with Stephanie and find out what's going on and report at our next work session.
Sounds good. Okay. Councilmember Nichols.
I don't have anything to report.
You've been tied up, so. Councilmember Paulson.
Hadn't yet.
Okay, it's early in the year and everything, so Councilmember Mangum.
Only thing I have to report is Neighbor Works Pocatello has just finished their Avenues for Hope campaign, raising right around $62,000. They won first prize for most donors and second prize for most raised. They've increased by about almost $10,000 for this campaign. From last year, they've increased by 10,000. And so outside of that, I think that's the only one I have to report on.
Super, thank you.
The quarterly meeting for CCOG was the night that we had our last work session. And so the updates are from that meeting. But there are a couple of really big ones. The first of which is that as the board of directors, we were instructed to and to do a background check because CCOG is looking at establishing a small business administration microloan portfolio. So we currently have what is known as the revolving loan fund, which is typically designed to work in cooperation with a financial institution to provide funding for a business opportunity for people whose credit may not qualify them for a traditional business loan. And that's typically how that money is used. It's oftentimes larger amounts. It's things like building purchases or renovations, startup costs. The infrastructure is typically the biggest one. The point of this program would be to try and do sub 5,000 for, perhaps training, purchase of equipment that might go inside of said building, and that would not require us to partner with another financial institution. It could be housed entirely out of CCOG. And so I don't know what the time frame looks like. I just know that I'm doing a background check right now, which is the first step. So it's exciting to hear about that kind of progress and what CCOG is going to be able to do. And I know that there are businesses in our community that are currently on and a part of the revolving loan program. So I know we benefit from that as well. There was a presentation by our community development branch of CCOG, and we were specifically pointed out as being a recipient of the Brownfields grant and the excitement with that because CCOG is also a recipient of that. Of Brownfields funds for things like asbestos abatement, mold for condemned buildings in order to try and better some of those communities. I went and looked for the award of the grant and the announcement for the Brownfields job training grant and found the list of recipients. And the list of recipients that are next to us include cities like nonprofits in Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, Miami, Florida, Detroit, Michigan, Wichita, Kansas, Denver, Colorado, and Pocatello, Idaho. So seeing our name next to that and the opportunities that we have thanks to that grant is really spectacular. It's amazing work from the part of our staff, and CCOG was very excited about opportunities to kind of collaborate because they also have that funding. And so if we can find projects that would coincide and allow us to use the funds and stretch them and really take on big projects, they're pretty excited about that. The other thing that I had the opportunity, and this isn't necessarily from the meeting, but at the CCOG meeting, the tribe now has a new representative for governmental affairs named Mike Steele. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet him. He's not originally from our community. He's from northern Utah, but he was there and seemed really excited to. I know we work with the tribe and seemed really excited to begin his role in coordinating with governmental agencies. So.
Super.
Busy CCOG meeting at our newly renovated senior center.
Nice, good. I was a little worried that you said you started off with the background check and then I'm going to have to be removed from this.
No.
I was a little worried there. You panicked me for a second. So next time, ease it into us.
My bad. I'll start on the other side.
What'd they dig up?
No, thank you very much, Council. Mine is the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. The youth have been out. We haven't had a meeting yet this month. They've been on Christmas break, and so we will. I'll have a better report next month on that one. And other than that, PDA and Linda covers that pretty well. So thank you.
With your help.
Very much. Thank you for being here today. We have. With that, we will adjourn from this meeting. But I would like to remind the council that we have a special council meeting, a goal-setting meeting that will immediately follow this. Immediately follow this doesn't mean exactly immediately because our facilitators will not be able to be here for probably another hour-ish, 45 minutes to an hour, and so they had some things to get to this morning, and then they'll be here, and so please hang out. That meeting will happen in the Paradise Conference Room, though, in 45 minutes to an hour, hour-ish is what I would say. So thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned from this meeting.